This event has been documented by two other good-sized YouTubers that I know of. One of them, by Colinello, is around 8 to 9 minutes in length, while RS Will Miss It's video is a whopping hour. My video will serve as a middle ground between these two at what I estimate to be somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes potentially, while still peppering in unique information and being different. I'm the Runescape historian, let's get into it. One of the darkest events in Runescape history happened right here over 17 years ago on June the 6th, 2006. The event that took place on this date was dubbed the Falador Massacre. Both the massacre and its main perpetrator, Duriel321, would go down not only in RuneScape history, but gaming history forever. This event is remembered somewhat fondly now due to nostalgia and the passage of time, with Jagex even creating two 10-year anniversary events in 2016 for both old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3. Having said that, the Falador Massacre at the time was very controversial. It sparked hundreds upon hundreds of heated arguments across many forums in different corners of the internet, gave birth to many Duriel321 impersonators, and left many victims without their hard-earned items. This is the story of the Falador Massacre and Duriel321. What many people may not know is that despite its namesake, the story did not even start here in Falador, but rather in the town of Remington, where not much of anything of note ever happens. Taking it a step further, the story doesn't even start on June 6th, or even in the month of June. Our story today takes us back to May 31st, 2006. The much anticipated construction skill was released, being the fourth skill released after the transition to RuneScape 2 behind runecrafting, slayer, and farming, with the latter two releasing in early and mid-2005 respectively. Upon rushing onto the game with the hype of a new skill at its peak on opening day, players quickly found that construction was going to be immensely expensive. The best methods to train the skill all required planks. Planks other than the basic planks had not been in the game at this point, so they were not widely stockpiled. Additionally, this was before planks had extensive usage outside of a few quests, and the Grand Exchange wouldn't be available for over a year at this point to make hoarding easier. Not to mention, to get to a respectable construction level, players needed a lot of planks. A lot. The demand was through the roof, and seeing as how oak, teak, and mahogany planks didn't exist before the skill being released, and regular planks weren't hoarded in large enough amounts, the demand far outweighed the supply, especially in the opening week leading to absurd plank prices. Even the saws used to create the furniture were only available from the sawmill operator's shop early on. Most players didn't know about the tool rack in the early levels, which supplied saws upon being built. The saws started being bought out so that price gougers could sit outside of the Remington portal and sell them at heavily inflated prices such as 5, 10, and even 15k GP to desperate people. To put it short, the skill was very expensive. Those that got to the upper echelon of the skill early on were typically extraordinarily wealthy, and that brings us to the first major player in the story, a guy by the name of Cursed You. Cursed You was a fairly well-known staker at the time, and had amassed quite the collection of discontinued items and wealth, with his bank value clocking in at a staggering 40 bill in mid-2006. He had more than enough money available to take the skill all the way to 99, even with these inflated prices. Cursed You began training the skill excessively, and as he watched the high scores, he became more and more confident that he just might be able to pull off being the first person to 99 construction. Back in 2006, large parts of the community would actively watch the high scores to see who was on the front page, who was taking the lead in the race, and who might be the first to 99 in a newly released skill. The community would get legitimately excited about seeing high-ranking players in-game and would spam message them whenever they would come online. Cursed You became one of these players as he climbed the ranks, with many players wanting to see a glimpse of his house as he launched himself up the high scores. He has since joked about this fact and states that all they would have seen at the time was a bare-bones house with just a dining table, as all he was doing was farming XP. During the grind, Cursed You became well known for buying large amounts of planks. Whenever he turned his private chat on, there were dozens of people wanting to sell him planks of all kinds at all hours of the day. People were really invested in this race, whether that be for personal gain in the form of large gold profits from plank running, or just wanting to see who got number 1, with many of them cheering for the well-known player Zezima, who never really was in a prime position to win the race to number 1 and was often seen around number 10 from time to time. There was a point where Cursed You had cracked into the top page and saw that the top 2 ranks had triple his experience at the time. He didn't let that discourage him for too long, as he decided there were still multiple days left in the race and he had a chance to catch up. He ended up actually asking his parents if he could skip school for 2 days in order to have a chance at the #1 spot. Surprisingly, they agreed.
So here's the high score picture. So there I am, rank 5. Half the XP of Monkey Mojo and Noob Free. And I'm still in 2 minds of whether I can actually do this. Like, I'd crept up like these ranks really fast, and I was like, shit, am I going to be able to catch these guys? They have twice my XP. But I was like, you know what, there's still 10 million more XP to go. So I actually managed to convince my mother and father to let me take 2 days off school to be able to sit at home and get 99 construction.
With increased motivation, Cursed You buckled down and started doing construction non-stop in the coming days. He also had a hidden advantage, one of his best friends in real life named Josh. Cursed You and Josh did construction in shifts over the course of a weekend, giving him a huge push over the competition. His determination and various advantages helped him get to 99 construction. He was not only able to take the #1 spot, but was able to do so by quite a bit of experience. All in all, in an interview he claimed spending approximately 250 mil for 99, which contradicts another statement made by him on an old forum post where he stated that he spent 700 mil on mahogany planks. Regardless of which number is more accurate, this was a price tag that hurt a lot of his potential competition. He had done it. Even though he had clear advantages due to account sharing, he had etched his place in RuneScape history. A party to celebrate was in order. Forum posts were created on many fan sites and the official forums to announce the party, open to the public. The hundreds of players who had been clamoring to get a small glimpse of his house would finally get their wish. A party at Cursed You's house was held in World 111 in Remington. Hundreds of people showed up. Cursed You roughly estimates that there had to be 800 people there, although this was more than likely an exaggeration, as there is no way to know exactly how many people showed up on that fateful day. What is shown from old footage though is that the number was definitely in the hundreds. Players swarmed the combat arena, fought in the dungeon, and just admired the home's features. A little while into the party, Cursed You was beginning to lag horribly due to all the people. Without knowing about any of the potential glitches and just wanting the lag to stop, he ejected hundreds of players back out into the streets of Remington. One of which was Duriel321, who would become one of the most infamous players of all time in RuneScape just minutes after being ejected. At the time, Duriel321 wasn't well known. He was just your average player with decent stats that really seemed to enjoy PKing. It's said that he had started playing in early 2005 and had bounced around various PKing clans during his time on RuneScape. Some accounts of the event state that he was a young teenager, with the most common consensus being that Duriel was anywhere from 13 to 16 years old at the time of the massacre. Although it's important to note that these claims are murky at best. Here's where the event gets even more cloudy. Some players that were in the home, including Cursed You, say that it was the combat ring that caused the glitch. Players that were fighting in the combat ring would have had the attack option, and that persisted for those specific players upon being kicked outside, leading to them still having that attack option and being able to attack bystanders. Others state that the scrying pool was to blame, an item in the house that technically allowed a user's location to be classified as being somewhere else outside of the home. With the PvP option set to on within the home, these users were classified as being in Falador, for example, instead of a player-owned house, and didn't get their PvP status removed. Some people speculate that the PvP variable in place for player-owned houses only removed the PvP option if the player went from a player-owned home to outside, not if the player went from Falador to outside, for example. Either way, this was an oversight on Jagex's behalf, an understandable one given the size of the update, but an oversight nonetheless. Mod Ash did an interview over on Mod Shawnee's YouTube channel where they discussed the events of the massacre during a portion of the interview. At around 56 minutes into the video, it's stated by Ash that it was caused by an object within the house and the variable that checks if a user should be able to PvP not being set up properly given all of the possibilities within the house. although this doesn't narrow it down, as both the combat ring and scrying pool are objects within the player-owned home. With a statement such as the one made by Ash, though, it could have been an entirely different object within the home or set of circumstances. What is probably a more accurate assumption is that it was a multitude of things occurring in a specific sequence or quick succession, along with the expelling of guests, that caused the catastrophic bug. Unfortunately, due to the passage of time and changing of the game code, all we have are guesses and assumptions, even from Jagex moderators that were around at the time. There is an interview out there from Duriel321 that was proven fake by his clanmates, where the imposter states that it was in fact the scrying pool, so there goes that. There's also an interview that was done on AIM, which stands for AOL Instant Messenger, which was a popular chat service at the time. A person going by the nickname The Rat asked various questions to an individual claiming to be Duriel321. The interview was supposedly verified through Tippett staff members and was put onto their front page, although it's not clearly stated how this was verified. In the interview, Duriel associates a magic ball thing located next to the demon throne with the glitch. However, this interview is also said to be fake, as there was no true verification shown to the public other than the interviewer known as The Rat claiming it was verified on the same page. In a link at the bottom of the interview page from 2006, reached via the Wayback Machine, another user claims it was indeed a fully verified interview, and the ball got rolling after a discussion in an IRC channel, where a 30-year-old Runescape player somehow tracked the real Duriel321 down for said interview. Tippett was known to hold legitimate interviews around these years with famous players such as Zezima, and later on players such as Log.zit during the climbing boots fiasco of 2010. The supposed Duriel in the AIM interview also seemed to know exactly how the events played out and in what order, although that could be down to him simply watching the footage and reading what others were saying in the rants forum about what happened, then sort of piecing it together before the interview. Subsequent interviews and imposters claiming to be Duriel321 have emerged in the months and years following June 6, 2006, but none have been verified or proven true. Out of all of the interviews done following the massacre, the Tippett one is the most believable due to it emerging just hours after the massacre, and Tippett's previous verified interviews with other famous players give the interview some shred of validity. Although that isn't saying a whole lot given the widespread infamy of the event and the countless imposters. Regardless of what the trigger was, the result is well known. Hundreds of players were purged from Cursed U's home, and some of them had the ability to attack other players with no retaliation. The rest, as they say, is history. Some of the affected players began attacking bystanders right outside of the Remington house portal. Unsuspecting players holding large sums of cash and rares were attacked and killed. As a result of the commotion, player moderators flooded to the scene, urging players that were being attacked to step out into clearings so that the bug abusers could be easily identified and reported. Due to the large crowds and hysteria, that was easier said than done. Many players died in Remington, and many of them lost their valuable rares and millions of GP. The attacks didn't stop here and spilled out a bit further into the areas between Remington and Falador for the most part. During the commotion at Remington, the Duriel in the Tippett interview states he killed a player for a yellow party hat but was unable to get it due to looters. In the same interview though, he claimed that he got kill messages for players and had first pick at the loot as a result. This is obviously a conflicting statement that casts some doubt on the validity of the interview and Duriel's claims in the interview, but let's continue. Many people associate the glitch and subsequent massacre with Duriel being the only culprit. That wasn't the case, as there were a small amount of others that began smaller scale attacks and claimed their own victims. What's also interesting is in the clip on the screen, this guy made the mistake of actually attacking another person who was also glitched out. The other person doesn't seem to be attacking randoms and only fights back against the guy, forcing him to teleport. He seems to be acting as some kind of protector for the non-bugged out people, and even states, "Don't worry, if the guy comes back, I'll attack him again." Some players shared personal experiences of their friend groups hiding in weird areas such as Xanaris and other faraway areas to get away from potential PKers. The fear and excitement was pretty real around this time, to say the least. You gotta think, none of these people knew why they were able to be attacked. They probably thought anyone could attack them, or a large amount of people were able to attack, so they were probably scared and for some reason just didn't log out of the game. At some point shortly after the initial attacks, members of Jagex were awoken in the middle of the night to deal with the massive problem. Keep in mind this was said to be right around 2 AM over where Jagex staff was located in the UK. This fact led to their delayed response. These events took place in 2006 as well, so remote options to deal with this problem were not readily available. Maud Ash was the lucky one who got the call in the middle of the night to go deal with the issue.
I had witnessed it was definitely happening. Big problem. People killing each other in Falador. And the sysadmin spoke to Andrew about it, and Andrew, by phone, in the night, and Andrew confirmed, yeah, that sounds plausible, go and deal with it. And the sysadmin phoned me. I guess Andrew must have given him my number. Well, the call began with, hi, is that Ash? Right, yeah, we understand you said you'd be willing to do some emergency call-out work. We've decided to go ahead with that plan. Are you available at the moment? And frankly, I didn't actually know who it was. Didn't recognise the voice. So I said, yeah, okay. Meet you at the office? He said he'd come and give me a lift, so I gave him my address. And got up, got dressed, went outside. Still didn't know who I'd been talking to. So I was just standing there on the side of the street, in not the fancy end of Cambridge, by the way, looking around at passing cars, like possibly the world's worst prostitute. And
First U was booted from the game and his account was banned temporarily following the first attacks due to his home being the one involved. Duriel321 made his way to Falador on foot with a formidable 115 combat and access to ancient magics, both fairly impressive for the time. Before he gets to Falador Square, he was caught on video quickly trading someone and departing, saying a quick thank you as he ran toward the center of the town. I wonder what was traded. Did he get runes to attack his victims with? Did he trade off some of his Remington loot, ultimately knowing his account's fate? Something else? It seems like no one will ever truly know. Once he arrived near the center of the town, he picked up where he'd left off and began attacking other players again. It's here that he ended up killing a player wearing a green party hat. He happily loots the party hat and then puts it on his own head, completing his iconic look. Other players fell victim to Duriel as player moderators showed up in Falador and were repeatedly urging players to bank their valuables. During this time, Duriel continued his rampage collecting obsidian sets, those are capes and shields for those who don't know, ranger sets, which is the Robin hat and ranger boots, and stacks of coins among other rares. Much like Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th horror movies, Duriel's rampage continued on foot up the winding path towards Barbarian Village and eventually ended up in Edgeville, where a very large crowd had gathered to observe, with many of them following Duriel. He is then seen disappearing briefly amongst the crowd before reappearing again moments later. The potential imposter Duriel from the Tippett interview states this was due to him being temporarily disconnected. He got back online and claimed he was able to take the green party hat off and trade it to one of his friends in Edgeville just in time. If the Tippett interview is to be believed, this friend kept the green party hat and refused to share the stolen loot afterwards in an act that can only be described as some sort of twisted karma. During research, I found a few posts from individuals claiming to be friends of the original Green Party Hat owner. They claim he was so upset over the loss that he quit the game. Digging further, there was a post from the day of the massacre where the supposed Green Party Hat owner comes forth and confirms that he did in fact consider quitting due to Duriel's actions. Here's hoping that Green Party Hat guy is doing well today. Duriel's account was disconnected for the final time by a Jagex moderator by the name of Maud Murdoch, and the Duriel321 account was permanently banned. The rampage had finally ended after right around the 1 hour mark. The handful of other unnamed individuals that participated in smaller scale attacks throughout Remington and nearby areas were said to have been permanently banned as well. While we're on the topic of bans, I saw a lot of somewhat recent misinformation about the banning of Cursed You while I was scouring the internet. Many people still seem to believe he was banned for no reason or in connection with the Falador Massacre. He was banned a few months after the Falador Massacre for real-world trading offenses. The same friend that helped him get 99 construction and shifts, Josh, screwed him over. He got onto the Cursed You account and proclaimed that he real-world traded frequently to multiple people via public chat. He was basically announcing it everywhere. The Cursed You account was then reported, which led Jagex to looking into the account, where they did in fact find evidence of real-world trading. The Cursed You account was then banned as a result. Paul Gower posted in a thread later on the same day apologizing to all of those affected by the day's events, but added that there would not be compensation given to players who had lost valuables and there would be no rollbacks. The reasoning given in the post was that the rollbacks would affect thousands of players negatively for the good of a few dozen, as it had been hours since the events of the Falador Massacre at this point. They also were not handing out any compensation due to the inevitable false claims that would have flooded in. In the aftermath, Andrew Gower and his team created a brand new area-based variable that would check players' PvP status more reliably. It seems to have worked, as something of this magnitude has yet to be replicated in the years since. A true 100% verified interview or report from Duriel's perspective has not emerged since the events of the massacre, with the most believable being the Tippett one, but even that one has had some holes that have been poked in it over the years. Duriel 321's account details were unearthed shortly after his rise to infamy, and the account was hacked. The account has been reported to have changed hands a few times over the years. Obviously, it's a useless permabanned account, but what this means is that any person coming forward in the future as Duriel 321 with account proof will have doubt cast on them and more than likely won't be believed due to this reason. As an added piece of information, in 2008, the Duriel 321 account was verified and joined the infamous Reign of Terror clan as a member, which sounds silly as the account is permabanned, but they obviously would have joined on another account. In 2016, on the 10-year anniversary of the Falador Massacre, an event featuring an NPC version of Duriel 321 was held on both RuneScape 3 and Old School RuneScape, complete with messages about Cursed U's upcoming 99 construction party, as well as a RuneScape-style cover of the Nightwish song Planet Hell, which has since become permanently tied to the Falador Massacre due to the most popular video of it at the time playing it as Duriel chased down his victims with his abyssal whip. Well, there you have it, the most infamous event in RuneScape history. This event was so impactful that some players can still state where they were within the game at the time of the event. News of what happened spread to different corners of the internet, and it is still discussed frequently 17 years later, even reaching non-RuneScape related subreddits and forums. I've gotten multiple requests to cover this, and I've held off for months as it's been done a few times by creators that quite frankly edit better than me. Hopefully I was able to add a new perspective though, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and comment below. Thanks for watching, I really do appreciate it. This is the RuneScape Historian, checking out. Peace.